Thank you. That sounds impressive. That's kind. I do love being involved. I love this campus. I love this university, and this school is a great school. It really is. The Huntsman School in the last 10 years or so has really become an elite business school. So you're very lucky to be here. And I'm thrilled to be here. I met some of you briefly, and I love interacting with students. I loved my time as a student, and consider myself an Aggie first and foremost above just about anything else, other than maybe father and husband. So critical thinking and problem solving, I don't really have like a script per se, so we're just going to kind of talk. I have some maybe examples and experiences I can share, some that are successful and some that were not successful, but they're learning experiences. And one thing I can tell you is that I'm a very different person today than I was when I entered Utah State University as a student for the first time. And I was a very different person at the end of that 4-year experience. And I'm a very different person today than I was at the end of that 4-year experience. And, that's kind of life. It's just this perpetual learning and experiencing kind of thing. And so hopefully the person that you are today, the things you think about, the opinions you hold, they're going to change. They will change. And the world around you will change. Drastically, actually. It's going to change drastically, and that's going to have an impact on you. I have one of my favorite quotes. It's a general out of the Air Force. He said, "If you don't like change, you're going to like irrelevance even less." And I love that because that's just the world. So critical thinking and problem solving is pretty critical, pretty important. And that's why, to answer my own question there, that's why it's so critical, because the world is changing at speeds that, weren't happening 50 years ago, even 20 years ago. It's really rapidly changing. Everything from technology to consumer behavior to geopolitical alliances, everything has changed and is changing. So, let me ask you guys, why are you all here? Are you all forced to be here, or did you choose to be here? What did you do to these poor people, Holly?
So they all chose to be here.
They're okay.
Participating in a career readiness.
All right.
So
well,
they've listened to people like you talk about leadership and problem solving.
So even more pressure. Great.
Right? Raise your hand if any of you are course.
All right. Well, so you chose to be here. Let me ask you, what are your thoughts on problem solving and critical thinking? Is there a difference between the two? Yes, Tanner, right? I met some of you, got some of your names. I'm really lousy with names, so I deserve a gold star for getting one name. I want that. That's my one big moment today. Tanner.
I think critical thinking is something that leads to problem solving. Being able to look at a problem or a situation and look at it from many different perspectives from people involved in it, and then that critical thinking leads to an accurate way to solve the problem.
Well, crap, there goes my presentation. Have a good afternoon. That's more eloquent than I was going to say. Yeah, I agree. They are different things. I think they're very different things. Why are they important? Why? I mean, with this group, shouldn't be a big revelation. But why are they important? Give me context. Like, in what context are they important? Please, Carly. Oh man, I'm on a roll.
Critical thinking, I think, really comes into play when you're trying to figure out what the real problem is.
Okay.
And then finding an accurate solution to the true problem.
Yeah.
And then developing an efficient solution so you don't have to try 10 different things before you finally solve.
Yeah, I love it. I totally agree with those assessments. And look, whether it's in your next job, whether it's just as a citizen, these things are every day, right? Every day they're important. And I got a fancy quote here from Martin Luther King Jr. "The function of education is to teach one to think critically." That really is first and foremost. Intelligence plus character. That's the true goal of education. If you know, some of you are going to come to Utah State University and you're going to learn how to deconstruct literature. And some of you are going to come to Utah State University and you're going to learn how to use Excel as a powerful analysis tool. And some of you are going to come to Utah State University and on and on and on and on, right? I mean, few of you will leave with the same skills. Now, among this group, certainly there will be some. You probably all have at least a basic understanding of accounting and how numbers move on a balance sheet and so on and so forth. But it's rare that, I mean, you know, you have friends and you have different skills. However, if you leave Utah State University and you don't have the basic tools to think critically, then you've failed. We've failed you, you've failed. But I don't believe that will be the case, particularly in the Huntsman School. I really don't believe that. I think you almost have to try to not leave the university without those tools. So when we talk about critical thinking and problem solving, I love what Tanner said, and here's what I said, that critical thinking really has more to do with the questions we do or don't ask, the assumptions we make, and how we treat and organize the information that we do have, right? It's really precedes problem solving. I love that. It's beautiful. And what I said about problem solving is that really is more about doing, isn't it? Problem solving, it relies on a host of skills and talents and so on and so forth. Well, as I said, while critical thinking almost always precedes problem solving has more to do with execution, with doing, than with thinking. You know, and I just listed a few things there. Alliances, resources, trade-offs. You have to sell the vision. What are the incentives? So as I was thinking about this, I think when I came to Utah State University, I had plenty of experience in problem solving. That was out of necessity because of the way I was raised. I grew up poor. I grew up working on farms, and I was raised by a generation. My parents were of a generation where, you know, they were just like, they didn't do much for me, really. Not because they didn't love me, because that's what you did. That's what parents did. You know, they sort of kick you out and, well, figure it out, dude. That was the generation I was raised by. And so I had plenty of opportunity to problem solve and learn on the fly. And I think problem solving, that's where you get your problem solving skills. It's on the job training, I think. It's really hard to learn that in a classroom setting. I think that your generation, now obviously there's always exceptions to these wide, broad brush kinds of you know, that I'm going to paint your generation with now. I think, are we calling your generation the iGen? Is that what we're calling? Have you guys heard that? The iGen? President Cockett calls your generation the iGen because it was the first generation that was raised. Now, I don't have an iPhone because I joined the resistance, but you're the first generation raised on this. You're raised on this, and it has impacted everything about you. Additionally, you're raised by me and Holly and people like us, and our generation has been so intent on giving you the best experience. Oh, we want to give you the best experience. We want you to have this and have that. And oh, don't miss out on that. And we have failed to really provide you opportunities to problem solve. Again, broad brush, I know, and it's not fair and accurate in every case, but I think it is accurate as a broad group. We have failed to provide your generation with the kinds of experiences that naturally develop problem-solving skills. Relationship problems, problems with my landlord, whatever it is. We, as parents, we've jumped in and we just rescued every little thing because, oh my goodness, you got to get your housing and let me do this for you. And oh, there, it's all set up now. You're ready to go to school. These are real stories from my own experience. My daughter, who is a freshman at SUU, I know, I'm sorry. She has a friend. They were graduating seniors. They're getting ready to go to college, go away. And her friend had never put gas in her own car. It's a real story. Now, maybe some of you also have never put gas in your own car. This graduating senior who's about ready to go to school, to college here at Utah State, did not know how, did not know what to do, pump gas in her own car. My wife has a friend whose daughter is also, she's a graduating senior, getting ready, and this friend confided in my wife that she doesn't know how to make food. And my wife said, well, yeah, but it's college. She can make ramen and mac and cheese. No, she doesn't know how to boil water to make food. That's a real story. It's alarming. And it shows up, it's showing up in so many areas. We have real mental health issues. We have real completion and retention issues. Some of them are just financial, but it's showing up in so many ways. And so this is a challenge that you face that I just had to exist, and I sort of had a natural immersion in problem solving. However, I think your generation is long on critical thinking. When I came to Utah State University, I did not have good critical thinking skills. And I think your generation has vastly better critical thinking skills. Partly because the iGen, right? The iGen, because you're so inundated with so much information that to get this far, the fact that you're sitting here and you're 2, 3, 4 years into your undergraduate degree, you've really had more information, more competing interests, more this and that and everything coming at you that you've naturally evolved to build better critical thinking skills than, say, when I was your age. I had to really learn those. And at Utah State University and in your education, you have opportunities to continue to practice those and really refine those and get even better. But you started at a better place in that regard. So I don't know how that may inform you, but I think if you understand that, there's good news in there. Which is, in the workplace at least, if you become a problem solver, if you're good at problem solving, well, you have a real leg up on everybody else, right? You have a real leg up. So anyway, that I wanted to, let's see, this is so scripted. I actually was changing the order of my slides like 10 minutes before you got here because I want to talk about this next. So we'll just kind of go along and talk about things. Okay, so maybe some real experiences and examples of critical thinking, problem solving. And if at any time you have questions or want to share something, this is just kind of fluid, so just let me know and we'll stop and take your input or question. Okay, so I want to give you, I was thinking about some examples from my experiences of problem solving and critical thinking, and literally every day, right? If you think about it, I mean, to be a good citizen, and I think that, I have a quote in here somewhere, I moved it around, but I have a quote in here somewhere I'll share with you. I think, so I served in the Utah legislature years ago, and there's kind of this thinking amongst part of the legislature that, hey, education should mean jobs. And how are we doing getting these kids ready for jobs? That's true. That is true. I don't disagree with that at all. And we have we've had this focus on STEM, science, how does that stand for? Science, technology, engineering, math. And then they changed it a little bit. Now it's STEAM. Is that right? What does STEAM mean? We added an A. Is it arts? I don't even know anymore. But the idea behind it is good, but I think it misses the mark a little bit in that I don't believe the primary purpose of education and a state-sponsored or assisted education, which you probably all, if you grew up in Utah, probably all of you got, unless you went to a private school, you got a state-sponsored education K through 12. And this education is state-assisted. We're not doing that. I don't believe the primary purpose of doing that is just so you'll be job ready. Yes, that's important, and it's a critical component. I believe the primary reason is so that you will be better citizens, so that you will be critical thinkers. And we'll get into a little bit of that maybe a little bit later. So I want to share with you an experience. I was thinking about lots of experiences where critical thinking and problem solving come into play. And there's an experience I had in the Utah legislature where we nailed the critical thinking, and I think we failed the problem solving. So, how many of you, raise of hands, how many of you would think that we ought to remove drunk drivers from our roads and highways? Raise of hands. How many of you think we should remove drunk drivers? Everybody? It's unanimous. We should remove drunk drivers from our roads and highways. How many of you would be in favor of getting rid of, in other words, making illegal DUI checkpoints? Raise of hands. How many of you would like to make those illegal? None? None of you? Why not? Why not? Who wants to share? James? I know James, so I'm going to pick on James. Okay, we want to get rid of drunk drivers, so why would we make DUI checkpoints illegal? Well, I ran a bill my freshman year in the legislature. Actually, it was my second year in the legislature that would make DUI checkpoints in the state of Utah illegal. That's crazy, right? That is insane. Everybody told that. My own wife was like, what? What are you doing? Why would you want to do that? Nobody wants drunk drivers on the road. Well, when you get into the data, and I'll try to be brief about this, but I'm kind of a data geek, so when you get into the data, there are 12 states in the union, at least at the time, there are 12 states in the union that do not allow DUI checkpoints. Okay, that leaves 38 that do, correct? The National Highway Traffic Association tracks data, alcohol-related fatalities per million vehicle miles traveled. Okay, so they've taken this data and they've equalized it because some states have a lot more drivers and so on and so forth, but it's alcohol-related fatalities per million vehicle miles traveled. If we take the 12 states that do not allow DUI checkpoints, we take those 12 states and that data alcohol-related fatalities, and we compare it with the 38 states that do practice DUI checkpoints, who do you think has lower alcohol-related fatalities? The 12 states or the 38? Who says the 12 states have lower alcohol-related fatalities? Why do you say that, Tanner?
I just feel like,
Because otherwise, why would I tell this story, right? You'd be an idiot. Any other reason?
I just feel like people would have to be smarter. When someone knows they're going to be checked, I don't know, it's more cases and where they're going to be checked. They know where they can treat and otherwise.
Yeah, you're getting to the heart of it. Any other ideas? Give me your name.
My name's Hayden.
Hayden.
Could it be possible that just in those states they have less drunk driving fatalities, so they haven't implemented that program?
Say that again. So they have less. What Hayden's saying is maybe those 12 states have essentially less drinking going on. Is that right? Could be. That could be. That's fair. That's good critical thinking. Okay. Well, it was the lower vehicle-related, alcohol-related fatalities per million vehicle miles traveled. Even when you pull states like Utah out of the data set, because Utah does have there's just lower drinking. Even when you pull, there was a couple of states, like 2 or 3, we pulled out, they're lower drinking per capita. Even when you pull those out, stays the same. Why is that? Well, Tanner was getting to part of that. I don't know all the reasons why, but when you started digging into the data and interviewing prosecutors and interviewing other law enforcement officials, they start telling you anecdotal stories like this. It's really impossible. Not impossible, but it's next to impossible to get a DUI charge to be what's the word I'm looking for? Conviction. To get a conviction out of a checkpoint charge. Why is that? Anybody know what the Fourth Amendment to the United States Constitution is? Oh, come on. You guys need to take some political science classes. Fourth Amendment.
It's warrant searches and seizures.
Yes, warrant searches and seizures. I should have brought some prizes, right? Do other speakers bring prizes to give away? Never. Anyway. Yes, it's warrant search. You have a right in this country against warrantless searches and seizures. So my argument to the Utah legislature was, hey, look, first of all, we have a constitutional right. While the United States Supreme Court very narrowly, they set up these really weird, narrow ways to make checkpoints legal. Because of those narrow guidelines, it makes it almost impossible for law enforcement to get a conviction to stick. But you have a right. We say in this country, look, law enforcement can't just randomly stop you and search you. We're not 1939 Germany. This is the United States. We don't have probable cause, right? So that was my first argument. That appealed to both civil libertarians on the left and hardcore conservatives, constitutional conservatives on the right. Literally, once we made our case, and then you throw the data out there and you say, hey, look, this notion, this myth that you're safer because we're pulling all those resources into checkpoints, as Hayden said, that like it's too easy to avoid those. They're very unproductive, and in fact, then we had law enforcement from like what's the city over in Colorado State? What's the city? I can't think of this city name over there. Colorado? No, it's not Colorado Springs. Anyway, one of the cities in Colorado, they'd done away with checkpoints, and they had the chief of police there said, we make light years more DUI arrests now that we don't practice DUI checkpoints. What they do is they do saturation patrols. They take an area where maybe there's a lot of nightclubs or a lot of bars, and they just sort of camp out and they watch for probable cause. Guys driving, over the center line, driving without his headlights on. That's reason to, now I've got reason as law enforcement. So we appealed to that. We said the data doesn't back it up. Not only that, we believe in this country that you have your Fourth Amendment rights. It passed out of committee. It was the most awesome thing. It passes out of committee. The law enforcement in that committee room, I could just feel it. I think if they felt like they could get away with grabbing their guns and doing away with me right then, they would have. That's not fair. I shouldn't say that. But the tension was really thick. They hated me. They hated me. They came to me. Now the bill goes to the House floor, and I got lots of law enforcement coming and saying, hey, can we talk about this? Would you be willing to pull this and let's spend some time talking about it? And I said, nope. I entertained all discussions with them, but I said, nope, we are having this debate. This is a debate we need to have in this state. We had the debate. Nobody thought, well, he got it out of committee. I didn't think it was going to pass the House. In fact, I told people, I said, look, this is not going to pass the House. But we are going to have this debate. We need to have a debate about civil liberties in this state, and what I saw as too much of the police state gaining a little too much power. So we had the debate. It passed the House. It passed the House. We appealed to the civil libertarians on the left, which I'm one of, and the constitutional Republicans on the right, which I'm one of, sort of schizophrenic. Literally, the only people that didn't vote for it were the sort of middle people, moderates. It was awesome. It was fantastic. Our critical thinking was on point. And when we had the opportunity to go present that, when I could sit down and speak with a legislator one-on-one and say, look, this is why we're doing this. It was like, oh, wow. So let me ask this room. And don't, if I haven't changed your mind, that's totally fine. Let me ask this room. How many of you would be in favor of getting rid of DUI checkpoints? Almost, we did it again. We did it again. Awesome. We won. We passed it out of this body as well. Our critical thinking was on point. We nailed it. And when those arguments were made, it was very difficult for representatives to vote against it. My election that was in about February. My election campaign started the very next month in March. I got a local doctor that filed against me who was just livid that I had run this bill, that I would be so careless as to run this bill. And he used that against me, and he just pounded me. And our local sheriff, who didn't like me anyway, he saw that as an opportunity. Let's get this guy. And so did the other law enforcement people around the valley in the state, and I lost. I lost my re-election. But, let me back up a little bit. So as a bill to become law, the bill has to now go, how much time am I? Man, I got to get going here. Sorry, this is a long story. So for a bill to become law, it has to go to the Senate. And the Senate president said, we will not even hear this bill. Well, I had some senators, some pretty powerful senators that said, I want this bill to be heard. And in fact, I want to sponsor your bill. So the rules chairman said, can I sponsor your bill? And I said, please. The Senate president said, we're not hearing this bill in the Senate. His wife had been hit by a drunk driver years ago. So he made an agreement with Margaret Dayton, the Senate Rules Chairman. He said, you can bring him into closed caucus with just the Republicans. If we have the votes on the Republican side, we'll hear it. If not, forget about it. So I went in, I made my case. They didn't have the votes. I lost my election. How did we do on the problem? The bill didn't pass. I lost my election. How did we do on the problem solving? How did we do? Give me your name again. Matt. How did we do, Matt?
I mean, not too great since it didn't pass.
Yeah, it didn't pass. Not only did it not pass, I got killed over it, right? Problem solving, I was short on problem solving. What could I have done? What should I have done? I mean, I can think of a lot of things, but any ideas?
I think if you had started with law enforcement,
Yes.
benefits to them,
Yes.
advocates rather than your
Yes, Carly is right. Carly is right. I should have started with law enforcement. That's where I should have started. Now, to be fair, I did go and I met with the Logan City Police Chief. He was very gracious and said, well, I disagree with it. And I said, well, that's fine. I'm running it. See you later. And I tried to get a meeting with our county sheriff, who's not the county sheriff now, previous county sheriff, and he wouldn't meet with me. And I said, I don't care. And the law enforcement kept coming to me during the session and like, can we talk about this? And I'm like, sure, we can talk about it, but I'm running the damn bill. I was very full of myself because I was right. I was right. I still know I was right. I'm right. I was dead right. And the reason I use a political example is because politics is the best little microcosm for how things really work, even in business. Even in business. Everything is political, even in business. So, yeah, I should have thought this through and found on the problem-solving side, should have realized this is not a mathematical equation. Who's our economist over here that I met earlier? He just left, of course, so great. So it's not an economics problem, it's a people. These problems are the calculus. You have to build in the people factor. And those of us who, now I graduated with an English writing degree. And before that, in high school, I was really involved in theater. So I came from the arts side of thing. I got my MBA later. But really, my brain loves the quant side. I love data. I love analytics. I love that stuff. You got to have both because it's almost impossible to quantify the people side of things. You know, we can sit there as analysts. So I met some of you are going to be a business analyst. Who was that? Who's got a job? Carly's got a job as a business analyst. Others of you will. You can analyze things and, with this variable and that variable, and this is what it's going to be. That's great, and that helps us plan in business. But it isn't, it's almost impossible to factor in the other part of those equations. And you must factor in the other parts of those equations. How are people going to feel? Who has a stake in this? Who is going to lose? Who are the winners and the losers going to be? And how do I get the winners to support me? Or, the losers. How will I get the losers? What can I give them? So, that's where we failed in the problem-solving side. So, random tips for critical thinking, or not. Because if you're being a critical thinker, maybe you think my tips are lousy. And maybe you should. And you should question each one of them. Okay, read. Read. Oh my gosh, read. Continue to read through life. Read the Wall Street Journal. Read everything. Read good books. Read. Be well read. That really helps. Balancing quantitative with qualitative analysis and skills. As I said, like many of you, you're from the Huntsman school. I'm guessing you've loaded up on the quantitative stuff, right? Now, there are some qualitative things that we teach. HR, who's our HR folks in the room? Is it you? Yep, HR, there's some HR things. There's other, we try to bring that in, but you really need to have some experience and some exposure to politics, Go get elected to your city council. Go to your city council meeting. Have some exposure to the arts, right? Understand that the human heart and mind, we're not automatons. We're people. We have feelings. We don't make rational decisions very often, right? And that's important in business because, you know, if you've ever, also, if you're going to be in business, I hope you've had a sales job at some time in your life. If you've not been at that intersection, you'll never truly understand business because people buy for their own reasons, not your reasons. So balancing those things, realizing that it's nearly impossible to measure and account for everything and every impact. You can't do it. I had a finance professor when I was doing my MBA. He used to say the same thing at the end of every class. And it really taught me, it's about the only thing I remember from that class, but it really taught me something. He would say, you know, as you build models, we'd build financial models and really cool, and we can calculate, we know what the cash flows are going to be, and blah, 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 right? And then he would say at the end of every single class, he would say, remember, the only thing we can be certain of is that our assumptions will be wrong. Right? Right? We assume, I do this on a daily basis. We assume we know what our cost of funds, I'm at the credit union, we assume we know what our cost of funds are going to be a year from now. We don't know. We assume we know whatever it's going to be wrong. Doesn't mean that those things are not valuable. They're really valuable in planning and understanding the business so that when things don't go as planned, you know how to react. Okay, where was I? Just understand that. Understand that there is no perfect models. And as much as you might be in your first job or your second job, you might be in a room with really good analytics and a really great model that you built. That's looking at the problem like this. You're not seeing all of it. So understand that, especially going into your first jobs. Understand that you may have the right answer. Don't be dead right. Don't be like me. You can be right. Don't be dead right. Understand that you might have a boss or you might have a board of directors that sees some things you don't see. And while it might be the right answer, well, yeah, it can't be, we can't do that right now. Well, yes, that would be good, but if we do that, we're going to have a problem in this division. If we do that, we have some stakeholders that are really going to be upset. All of those things factor in to problem solving. Surround yourself with smart people. That's one thing I've really done really exceptionally in my life. When I took over the credit union in 2011, this is just on the heels of a really bad recession in 2008 and 9. The credit union was not recovering, which is why the old CEO was out, and I was just dumb enough to take the job. That's not even a joke. MBA, I'm smart and all this stuff. I was just dumb enough to take the job. What I did right, however, was I went out and hired a really good attorney that helped us get out of some very toxic assets we had on our books. And then I elevated some people in the credit union and surrounded myself with people who knew parts of the business better than I did. And just in my personal life, I just have really smart friends. And my best friend. So I grew up in rural Utah, white, obviously, Mormon, and conservative. And my best friend was not Mormon, not really that conservative. And he's my best friend to this day. He's now a federal judge, and he's a really smart guy. And he has really shaped my thinking on the world and helped me to see things. I'm like, yeah, I think he's right about this, and I've changed my mind on some things, and I've grown and I've evolved. And if you're just in an echo chamber your whole life, if you just surround yourself with people who are exactly like you, I think you retard your growth. I think your growth will be retarded as a person, as a citizen. So surround yourself with smart people, some of which don't think like you think. And that's awesome. That is fantastic. And it's also awesome if you don't change your mind on certain things. That's fine too. Okay, sorry. Let's see. Surround yourself with smart people. And then, of course, question the premise. And that, I mean, every day. I had an issue just the other day. I got 2 VPs that run our mortgage division. And they've been the same issue coming to me over and over, and it's a really, essentially they want to change one of our products. They're like, oh, this product is inferior, and we're not really competitive in the market, and they want to change it, and da-da-da. And I finally stopped. We're like in this meeting, and it's really deep water, and I'm not totally understanding exactly how this product works. And I said, time out. Like, what is the problem we're trying to solve? What is it again? Like, if it's that this product is not competitive, well, where's the evidence of that? And not only that, but the solution that you're proposing, what's the lift? Right? What's the marginal gain? You know what marginal gain is, right? Somebody tell me what marginal gain is. Contribution margin, marginal gain. Come on, somebody venture out there. Who's my accounting people? Nobody wants to come clean. What is marginal gain? This is what I'm getting. I don't have a grease board. Well, I do, but I don't see any. Okay. Well, the camera, yeah, I don't want to dance around. I know he's filming this. So if I'm getting this, marginal gain or contribution margin in your accounting class means if I'm already getting this status quo and I make these changes over here and I get this is my marginal gain, right? That's my contribution margin. So I take that and I say, what did this cost me to make these changes, right? What did that cost me? What did it cost me in brain damage, in manpower, and hard costs? What did it cost me to do all of this? Then I measure it against my marginal gain, and I go, was that worth it? Right? So, question the premise. When you question the premise, oh, we don't have a competitive product, and well, do we? It's in the market. People are using this service. Like, so how much are we going to gain? Like, what is the problem really? The problem isn't that we have a product that's not competitive. The problem, if you really dive down, is we're only getting this and we want that. Well, can you achieve that? So whether it's business or anything else, or question the premise. Always come back to the premise and we're assuming A, B, and C, but is A, B, and C true? Don't be afraid to go back to that premise and say, let's start over. Let's make sure we feel confident on some of these things. Okay, I'm quickly running out of time. Problem-solving tips. Again, communicate to get vision and buy-in. Carly diagnosed my problem quickly. Who controls the capital? In other words, who has the money, right? Who are the stakeholders? You better know that. Who are your natural allies and enemies, and what do they have to gain or lose? In my example, it was very clear, and if I had put some time and focus into that, that could be every problem has potential winners and losers, and you better be ready to address those. What can you offer them in a win, or what will the consequence be? It might be, it was mentioned that when I took over as CEO, we got the company fixed, we got ourselves healthy again, And I knew, I had known for years that as a small community credit union, we have no future. We have no future. Technology and consumer behavior and scale is going to kill us. I knew we have to have a merger partner. We can't grow organically that fast to catch up. But I can't go tell my staff that. They're going to be panicked. And furthermore, when I did approach my board, I did it very carefully. I'm like, this is something I could get fired for, right? So I had to understand, but I communicated carefully and diplomatically to our board that if we don't find a merger partner, if we don't get scale fast, we will die. This credit union will bumble along for 15 or 20 years, but this credit union's days are numbered. And so they understood that. They understood that as much as they wanted to be, whatever, they understood that USU Credit Union had to have a merger partner or it will die. And I put this in there, watch your back, Machiavelli. Who knows who Machiavelli is? Who's Machiavelli? He wrote The Prince, and give a quick little...
talked about, I guess, keys of leadership and what makes the most successful leaders. Talked about fear being the main...
Yeah, Machiavelli wasn't much of didn't have a real collegial style. Machiavelli talked about leading through fear. I should have thrown some of his things up there, but he's the one who said, for example, it is better to be feared than loved if you can't be both. So just, if you're going to be that kind of a player in your company or in your world, if you're going to go behind people's back and it's going to be a zero-sum game, I mean, there are people who do that and can be effective, but I don't recommend it. Watch your back. It will eventually catch up with you. So we don't have a whole lot of more time to talk about Machiavelli. And I love, I missed some other quotes in here, I think. I did. Where did they go? I'm moving around. So I love this. This is very Machiavellian. Al Capone. You know who Al Capone is? Famous mobster. You can get much further with a kind word and a gun than you can with a kind word alone. Sometimes that has to be true. Sometimes people have to know, look, I have the full weight and authority of the CEO or the board, or if you can't get on board with this vision, then you don't have a history here. So that's a very Machiavellian way to approach it. But sometimes I love the quote. Sometimes it's true. We don't have time to talk about Animal Farm, but when we talk about critical thinking, this critical thinking is what has separated us from all the other beasts, is that we developed an ability to think critically. And when you think about the totalitarian governments of the world, North Korea right now, and through time, Animal Farm. How many of you read Animal Farm? You must read it. My children are all required to read it. You must read Animal Farm. It's an allegory to the Russian Revolution, how it was just a sham and became what it became, which was the Soviet Union, and they oppressed their own citizens, mostly by not allowing them to think for themselves, and that's what they do in Germany. And John Adams, that's what they did in Germany. But what they do now in North Korea. They want to control everything, right? Totalitarian governments and despots and dictators. They want to control everything, but most importantly, they must control your thinking to succeed. And John Adams said, wherever general knowledge and sensibility have prevailed among the people, arbitrary government and every kind of oppression have lessened and disappeared. And that is why it's so critical. It's more important that you be critical thinkers as citizens than it is in your new jobs, because the future of this country, our liberty. I got another really great quote. Let me find it. Yes, the future of our economy. It all depends on that. This is from the book Sapiens, which I just finished reading. Love it. Highly recommend it. Modern science is based on the Latin injunction ignoramus. We do not know. The scientific revolution has not been a revolution of knowledge. It's been, above all, a revolution of ignorance. The great discovery that launched the scientific revolution was the discovery that humans do not know the answers to their most important questions. When we assume we know everything, we quit looking. Not 200 years ago in this country, people believed that lightning was the what's the word I'm looking for? Was the result of an angry God. They really believed that. They really believed God was angry and this was some kind of whatever. And Benjamin Franklin said, I don't think that's right. And he, the kite and the key, and now electricity is our servant. It washes our clothes. It lights our room. It prints our books. So I'm not going to play that. So critical thinking is the one thing. It is the one thing in society, in organizations, in families, in cultures. It's the one thing we cannot lose. So be good critical thinkers. Thanks for having me.